Sex workers, or more commonly known as prostitutes, are not new to the society. It is also known that prostitution is one of the easiest ways to get money. However, did you know that prostitution is one of the most dangerous professions in the world, as it often results in violence and transmitted diseases? So, what does sex workers have anything to do with us? Well, frankly nothing. However, human rights have something to do with us. Some sex workers across the world are not given basic human rights, and there is no law to protect them from the harm that their profession could cause, as sex work is considered a crime. Is their profession that disgraceful that they are being treated such way? And are we as a society are just going to sit back and watch these people get treated such way? I am definitely not the best person to speak up on sex workers' rights. However, as someone who aims to be an educator, I believe that I should do everything in my power to show the world how badly sex workers have been treated and how they have been deprived of their own rights, such as healthcare and education. Thus, before we begin, allow me to give a brief overview of the speech. I will be including reasons as to why these people chose to do sex work, the discrimination faced by them and their family, and the criminalization of sex work, which will prove that we should indeed change the way we perceive sex workers. Now that you know what the speech will contain, let us get started. Is sex work a choice? There are two ends of the spectrum when it comes to sex work. On one end, yes, indeed, it is a choice. Schwartz No Date have stated that some women said that they are attracted to the large sums of money they can earn while they are still young. Others see it as a way to pay for university education and further advancements. Here I have included an example that is not unfamiliar to Malaysians. However, on the other end, it is not much of a choice, as a number of them are sex trafficking victims who were forced to be sex workers. A study by the United Nations International Labour Organization estimated 3.8 million adults and 1 million children were victims of forced sexual exploitation in 2016. Based on these two spectra, do you think it is fair to judge someone for their profession without knowing the whole story? Without knowing that to some of them, this is their last resort? I believe that nobody would sell their body for sex unless they were stuck in a desperate situation. And fairly, I don't think that we should degrade someone's value due to their profession. Now that you know why they chose to do sex work, let us dive into what happens next to these people. The discrimination faced by them and their family. According to Samuel, 2020, horror stigma has been conceptualized to shame sex workers, particularly women, who embody unconventional gender norms such as selling their bodies for sex, satisfying lusts and fantasies, and carrying and transmitting sexually transmitted diseases. This stigma has engendered a misconception of sex workers being poor and uneducated individuals, which leads to a generally socially accepted disrespect and discrimination of these individuals. Not only that sex workers are discriminated, but Desk 2019 have said that the children of sex workers are not readily accepted by their peers in school. They are discriminated and abused, which causes them to become very isolated. This type of discrimination happens because of how society perceives sex workers. Are we really going to judge someone for a profession that might not be of their choice? Or even worse, judge a child for their parents' profession? Even when you say it out loud, it sounds ridiculous. Thus, why do we still do it? Why do we still keep the mindset of sex workers being unworthy? Now that you know the discrimination faced by sex workers and their family, let's move on to the most traumatizing part of this speech, the criminalization of sex work. In a handful of countries, buying and selling sex is illegal. And why is that the case? Why is it that something that is generally not a crime becomes a crime when there is a price on it? Doesn't make sense now, does it? To consider paid sex a crime when unpaid sex is not a crime. If it is not bad enough that sex work is a crime and there is no law to protect them from the harm their profession could cause, their rights as human beings are also violated. In a research by Decker et al. 2015, page 193, violations of human rights include homicide, physical and sexual assault by law enforcers, clients, and intimate partner, unlawful arrest and detention, discrimination in assessing health service, and false HIV testing. Imagine all these happening because of your profession. I believe that those 3 points that I have touched are more than enough to prove that we should indeed change the way we perceive sex workers. Now, why don't I give you a recap on what I have spoken on? Firstly, I answered the question as to if sex work is a choice. Then, I proceed to tell you about the discrimination faced by sex workers and their family. Lastly, I told you about the criminalization of sex work. Upon hearing all these horrible things that sex workers go through, how did it make you feel? Do you still not think that they are worthy of being treated as human beings? Do you still not think that they are worthy of getting human rights such as healthcare and education? Because fairly, if you don't, I suggest that you put yourself in their shoes. Only then you will realize how privileged you are as a person. Sex workers are humans, regardless of what their profession is. And society should learn to accept that.